The story of Christopher Kit Carson's midnight escape from a deadly ambush by Mexican lancers stands as one of the most compelling episodes of frontier survival in American history. It is a tale that transcends the boundaries of its era, embodying themes of perseverance, strategy, and human resilience. Carson's life was a canvas painted with adventures in some of the most hostile and untamed landscapes of the American West. But this particular escapade during the Mexican-American War remains a crowning jewel in his legacy. To understand the sheer audacity and brilliance of Carson's escape, we must first immerse ourselves in the world he inhabited. His story unfolds during a period of intense geopolitical conflict in a landscape that tested the limits of human endurance, and against an enemy renowned for its discipline and tactical prowess. Carson's survival was no accident. It was the culmination of years of hard-earned experience, a profound connection with the natural world, and an unyielding will to live. The Mexican-American War and its impact on the frontier. The events of Kit Carson's escape occurred within the larger framework of the Mexican-American War 1846 to 1848, a pivotal conflict in North American history. This war was driven by the United States' desire to expand its territory, fueled by the ideology of manifest destiny. The belief that the U.S. was destined to stretch from the Atlantic to the Pacific shaped the nation's policies and led to aggressive territorial acquisitions. The annexation of Texas in 1845 had already strained relations with Mexico, and the dispute over the border between Texas and Mexico provided the spark for full-scale war. For Mexico, the conflict was a bitter struggle to maintain its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Mexican government faced internal political instability, economic challenges, and a determined U.S. The war became a contest not just of armies, but of individual courage and resourcefulness. As scouts, spies, and small units often played decisive roles in determining outcomes. Kit Carson entered this stage as a scout for the U.S. Army. By this time, he was already a well-known figure in the West, celebrated for his exploits as a trapper, explorer, and guide. His intimate knowledge of the Southwest's terrain and his ability to communicate with Native American tribes made him an invaluable asset to the American forces. However, this war would push Carson's skills and resilience to their absolute limits. Kit Carson's early life and rise to prominence. Before delving into Carson's dramatic escape, it is worth exploring the experiences that shaped him into the man capable of such a feat. Born in Kentucky in 1809 and raised on the Missouri frontier, Carson grew up in a world defined by hardship and danger. The western frontier of the early 19th century was a place where survival depended on a blend of physical endurance, resourcefulness, and adaptability. Carson's early years were marked by toil on his family's farm and exposure to the wilderness that would later become his home. As a teenager, Carson left home to pursue a life in the fur trade, joining trapping expeditions that took him deep into the Rocky Mountains. Over the next 2 decades, he honed his skills as a tracker, hunter, and woodsman. He learned to read the subtle signs of the wilderness, to anticipate the movements of both prey and predators, and to navigate vast uncharted territories with nothing more than a keen sense of direction and an understanding of natural landmarks. Perhaps most importantly, Carson developed relationships with various American tribes including the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Ute. He learned their languages, customs, and survival techniques, earning their respect and sometimes their friendship. These experiences not only deepened his knowledge of the land, but also taught him the importance of diplomacy and cultural understanding, skills that would serve him well in the diverse and often volatile environment of the Southwest. A land of stark contrasts and unyielding challenges, the Southwest during the mid-19th century was a region of extraordinary beauty and peril. Its vast deserts, rugged mountains, and deep canyons presented both opportunities and obstacles for those who sought to traverse it. For Native American tribes, Mexican settlers, and American frontiersmen, the land was both a home and a battlefield, shaped by centuries of struggle and adaptation. For Carson and his men, the Southwest was a double-edged sword. On the one hand, Carson's familiarity with the region gave him a significant advantage over his enemies. He knew the location of water sources, the patterns of wildlife, and the safest routes through treacherous terrain. On the other hand, the harsh environment spared no one. The scorching heat of the day, the freezing temperatures of the night, and the scarcity of resources demanded constant vigilance and ingenuity. This unforgiving landscape also dictated the strategies of warfare. Armies and smaller units alike had to contend with logistical challenges, such as securing enough food and water for men and horses. The rugged terrain made communication and coordination difficult, often isolating groups and leaving them vulnerable to ambush. For Carson, who operated on the fringes of the conflict as a scout, the ability to adapt quickly to these conditions was a matter of life and death. A life-or-death situation. The chain of events leading to Carson's escape began when his reconnaissance party, tasked with gathering intelligence on Mexican troop movements, was discovered by a patrol of Mexican lancers. These soldiers were among the elite forces of the Mexican cavalry, trained in swift, coordinated attacks that could overwhelm their enemies in moments. Armed with long lances, sabers, and firearms, the lancers were a formidable adversary, particularly against smaller groups like Carson's. The lancers quickly surrounded Carson's party, cutting off any obvious means of escape. With their superior numbers and strategic positioning, they believed victory was inevitable. For Carson and his men, the situation was dire. Fighting their way out was not a viable option. They were vastly outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender seemed equally grim, as prisoners in this conflict often faced harsh treatment or execution. Carson, however, refused to accept either outcome. Drawing on years of experience in the wilderness, he began to devise a plan that would turn the lancers' overconfidence against them. The midnight escape, a masterclass in survival. As darkness fell, Carson recognized that the cover of night offered their best chance of escape. He instructed his men to prepare for a silent, coordinated retreat. Every detail of the plan was meticulously considered. Noise had to be minimized at all costs, as even the slightest sound could alert the lancers to their movements. Carson also understood the importance of timing. They would have to move slowly and deliberately, waiting for moments when the lancers' attention was diverted. The group's initial movements were excruciatingly slow. Carson led his men through a series of natural obstacles, including rocky outcroppings and dense patches of vegetation that provided cover and obscured their tracks. He relied on his knowledge of the land to identify paths that would be difficult for the lancers to follow, such as narrow ravines and dry riverbeds. At one point, the group faced a near disaster when a patrol of lancers passed within feet of their position. Carson's quick thinking saved them. He directed his men to lie flat in a shallow depression, blending into the shadows of the terrain. The lancers, unaware of their proximity, continued on their way, allowing Carson's group to resume their escape. Psychological and physical challenges. The hours that followed were a grueling test of endurance and mental fortitude. The fear of discovery was a constant companion, heightening the tension of every step. Carson's men had to suppress their natural instincts, to hurry or speak, trusting in their leader's judgment, and maintaining their discipline, even in the face of overwhelming stress. Physically, the escape was equally punishing. The rugged terrain took a toll on their bodies as they navigated sharp rocks, steep inclines, and thorny vegetation. The desert night, while providing concealment, brought with it bone-chilling cold that sapped their strength. Hunger and thirst added to their suffering, as they had no opportunity to stop and replenish their supplies. For Carson, the psychological burden was perhaps the greatest of all. As the leader, he bore the responsibility for the lives of his men. Every decision he made carried the potential for both salvation and disaster. Yet Carson remained calm and focused, drawing on the same inner resolve that had carried him through countless challenges in the past. Outwitting the pursuers, Carson's tactical brilliance. Carson's escape plan did not end with simply evading the initial ambush. He anticipated that the lancers would soon discover their absence and launch a search. To counter this, he employed a series of diversionary tactics designed to confuse and mislead their pursuers. One of these tactics involved creating false trails. Carson instructed his men to leave footprints in soft soil, leading in the wrong direction, luring the lancers away from their true path. He also took advantage of natural features, such as streams where they could walk in the water, to mask their scent and erase their tracks. These measures not only bought them time, but also demonstrated Carson's ability to think several steps ahead of his enemies. By the time dawn broke, Carson and his men had successfully evaded the Lancers and reached a position of relative safety. Exhausted but alive, they had accomplished what seemed impossible. The escape not only saved their lives, but also allowed them to complete their mission, providing critical intelligence to the American forces. Carson's midnight escape became a celebrated episode in his already legendary career. It showcased not only his physical and mental prowess, but also his deep understanding of the land and its many challenges. For Carson, survival was not just a matter of instinct, but a skill honed through years of experience and a profound respect for the forces of nature. Kit Carson's escape is more than just a thrilling tale of adventure. It is a testament to the qualities that define the frontier era. His story reminds us of the resilience and ingenuity required to navigate a world where danger lurked around every corner. It also highlights the complex interplay of human ambition, cultural conflict, and environmental challenges that shaped the history of the American West. In the annals of frontier history, few figures have left a legacy as enduring as Kit Carson's. His midnight escape stands as a shining example of what it means to face impossible odds with courage and determination. It is a story that continues to inspire, reminding us that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit is capable of extraordinary feats.